Ravens flock. The flock rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. So I'm telling you now, it's about to go down. The podcast, the flock rundown. Ravens, baby. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering how high we can fly. Tune in.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
Appreciate you, Ray. What's up, Ravens fans? My name is Ryan, and welcome back to another episode of the Flock Rundown. The trade deadline is on Tuesday, October 31st. The rumors are swirling. Not too many from credible sources, but a lot of people are talking about who the Ravens might get, who they should get. And I'm making my last trade video before the trade deadline or until something happens. I've made two other ones. We dove into the pass rush, dove into the running back options a little bit. Now I'm going to touch on a few different options and then kind of give my final predictions on who I think we're going to get and who I think would be the best fit for this team this season. Hottest name on the block right now for the Ravens to get has to be Derrick Henry. Every content creator's talking about it. It's all over Twitter or X. There's a bunch of rumors swirling. Like I said, none of them are from credible sources to say that like anything is actually close. Just a lot of Ravens are interested rumors. Until I see it from some credible sources, I'm not putting a ton of weight into it. But let's talk about it real quick again. We touched on it briefly in my video where I said we should trade for Javonte Williams. We did touch on Henry as an option, but we'll touch on it again a little bit. Derrick Henry would make a lot of sense in this Ravens offense. It would create a ton of versatility, a ton of balance, and would just lift the run game. I mean, Derrick Henry is a power runner, but is also quick on his feet as well, and is just a force. I know he's getting up there in age, but he is a free agent moving forward. He only has the rest of this year's cap, so it might not take a ton to get him. I don't think it would take a first-round pick or anything like that. Maybe a third. That's all I would give up, I think. I don't even think I'd give up a second, but I would give up a third, maybe third or fourth round pick, and I think that's all it would take. I honestly don't think he has a lot of value with him set to hit free agency soon, and just him aging as a running back, and he's a very physical runner who's had a history of injuries, so there's risk to it, which I think lowers his value, but I'd pull the trigger on it. Honestly, I would pull the trigger on it the more I thought about it. It's not as safe or of a value pick as like a Javonte Williams trade because Javonte's under contract next year. He has a $2 million cap hit. Probably only have to give up like a fourth round pick, maybe a third. So Javonte's probably a safer trade. You know, he's a younger back who's still under contract, but Derrick Henry's probably more fun. I mean, Derrick Henry would be explosive, powerful, and immediately lift the entire running game. We would still use Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell when he's healthy. I know he came back to practice. I'm not sure how that hamstring's doing, but we still could use those other guys. I think it'd be really fun. Now, obviously, I'd probably rather have a Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs, but I know you got to give up a lot for those guys. Saquon Barkley's going to command a first-round pick. So that's why I don't see the Ravens going that way. We just don't part with first-round picks, and especially, in my opinion, for a running back. I think we would part for a first-round pick for this next guy I'm about to talk about, and that is Patrick Surtain. This is a dream option. This isn't a realistic option. He's got a pretty low cap hit because he's still on his rookie contract. You would actually have him for 2 more years with that 5th-year option. So he's not a free agent until 2026. And obviously, it would take a lot of draft capital to get Patrick Surtain. We're definitely giving up a first-round pick and more. Huge investment, giving up that much draft capital, and then you obviously would want to keep him on your team, so you'd have to give him a very big contract in a few years. And I think they can make that work. Don't get me wrong. And trust me, I'd love to have it. I think I'm desperate for a trade right now, so I'm excited about every option I hear about or think about. But I would say this one's more unlikely than the rest. For one, the Broncos, even though they might sell, aren't going to want to give up a talent like this because he's so young. They can rebuild with him. I think it would take an offer that absolutely blows the Broncos away for them to pull the trigger and trade Surtain, and I just don't think the Ravens are going to oversend draft picks to impress them, to sway them to get him. So unless he's available at a decent, maybe like only a first round pick or something like that, I just don't see that one happening, but that would be amazing. The best cornerback room in the entire NFL with Marlon Humphrey, Patrick Surtain, already on the best defense and pass defense in the league. And then you would get a future kind of replacement for Marlon as he ages. You have Surtain coming up in his prime. So, I mean, it would be a perfect scenario. We need another corner. I love Brandon Stevens. He's playing great. Everybody's stepping in. Darby, Rocky Ya-Sin, they're all playing their role. They all look solid. Arthur Mullet. But none of these guys are going to be what a Marlon Humphrey is. And to have another guy like that is such a luxury and an advantage. And I think would make our defense what it is now, if not even better, for years and years and years. And another one that we already touched on that is also exciting. I won't go into too much detail with it just because I made a whole video on it, but Danielle Hunter is still an extremely enticing option. I just don't think that the Vikings are going to want to part with him now. I think that they're playing a little bit better. Justin Jefferson's coming back in a few weeks, and they're going to try and make a run in the NFC and get their season back on track, and they're going to need Danielle Hunter on that defense to do it. I mean, Danielle Hunter's absolutely balling this year and is upping his value by the game. So it's going to take a second-round pick probably to get Danielle Hunter, and I don't think the Vikings are going to part with him. But would I love him on Baltimore? Absolutely. I mean, Danielle Hunter would absolutely wreak havoc on this defense. Our pass rush has the most sacks in the NFL right now, and we would add a bona fide stud. So am I for it? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to happen? No, unfortunately. And I think this trade deadline could go like that. Usually we see at least a couple explosive trades. Byard to the Eagles a couple days ago was pretty big, but I mean, usually there's a big trade, and the Ravens have actually pulled the trigger a few times in the last few years, getting Marcus Peters, getting Roquan Smith, Yannick Ngakoue. That one didn't work out as much, but my point is we're aggressive at that trade deadline. So history would suggest that we would be aggressive again, but it doesn't seem like a lot of action's going on. And there's a game Sunday, so our team's waiting until after Sunday to pull the trigger on Monday or Tuesday. That would make sense. So I think that might be why not a lot's going on right now. I want to touch on another option if we don't make a big splash. This guy is a veteran who I believe is available and would not take anything to get, and that's Dalvin Cook. Now, Dalvin Cook is aging as well, just as Henry is, but Dalvin Cook's lost in that Jets offense. He even made a comment, Adam Schefter's talking about it, saying that him and his agent are talking and possibly exploring trade options because his role in the Jets offense is not what he sees for himself. And they're obviously, unless Rodgers just miraculously comes back and they go on a run, they're not a Super Bowl contender anymore. And he signed with them to be on a contending team for a Super Bowl and to have a role in a contending team. Well, that's what he would have in Baltimore. And I honestly think you could get Dalvin Cook for a 6th round pick. And he's a free agent next year, so it definitely would be just the rest of this year, but you're giving up a late round pick. He has no value. He's not going to command a 2nd or 3rd round pick. You can give a late pick for Dalvin Cook, give the Jets something. If he's unhappy in New York and wants to play for a contender and have a role, that role's open in Baltimore. Would it still be a running back by committee? Yes. We would have Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, possibly Keaton Mitchell. I know he's going to be back in a few weeks, and Dalvin Cook. And it would kind of be everybody rolling together. But Dalvin Cook would get more opportunity than he is in New York, and I think would have more success in this offense. It would be easier to run in this offense for him, and we wouldn't have to give up a lot to get him. So it's something to think about. I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be mad at adding any talent, to be honest with you. I'm earning for a trade here. I want the Ravens to make a move and bolster this already stacked roster that's performing really well. I think we could put it over the top. And it doesn't always need to be a rental. We could make a future move too, you know what I mean? Getting a guy like Surtain, if you could possibly pull that off, if Denver's willing to sell at a fairly reasonable price, Surtain, you would lock up in a year or two, and that would be your corner of the future. So, like, you could make a move like that. We did that with Roquan Smith last year, and not every year you're going to be able to do that. Obviously, with Lamar's new contract and with Roquan Smith being the top paid linebacker, like, we've muddied up our cap a little bit, and we definitely don't have as much flexibility. In my opinion, I don't think they make a move for anyone that commands a huge contract moving forward, and I think we're going to really start building through the draft again. We always obviously build through the draft, but I mean, I think we might be holding on to picks and trying to build the rest of this team for the next few years, mainly through the draft, because I just don't think we're going to have a lot of money to go sign big free agents. We're going to lose a lot of free agents at the end of this year. I mean, we got Patrick Queen, Justin Madubuike, Geno Stone, all free agents, all balling this year. So, I mean, we're going to lose somebody. We're not keeping everybody. So, we already got to make some sacrifices there. You really have to consider who you're bringing in and what the future cap situation would be, because if you have to give them a big contract, it's going to be hard to make that work. I think a guy like Surtain is worth it. I think that makes sense just because he's so good, but it's something to really consider, and I feel like if I have to make my final prediction, the Ravens are going to go for a value trade. I would say there's like a 65% chance we don't make a trade at all. I mean, our roster is already pretty stacked, and we're performing really well. I know there's a couple bumps in the road, couple inconsistent weeks with the offense. Hopefully we're back on track with that, and that doesn't, seem to creep up every couple weeks. But if we do make a trade, I think we're going to boost the running back room, and I think it's going to be Javonte Williams or Dalvin Cook. And that's just because we don't have to give up a lot, and they have cheap cap situations. Javonte's even better because we have him next year as well on a cheap deal, so you get to keep him. Dalvin Cook would just be a rental for the rest of this year, but we would barely have to give up anything. 6th or 7th round pick. So I think we go in a direction like that. We make a value move. We'll probably end up trading for somebody that no one's even talking about at all. That seems to happen quite a bit. So I'm excited. Days are counting down. We got a game on Sunday. The preview episode is also today, so check that out as well. And Tuesday's the trade deadline, so it's coming quick. But let me know who you guys want, who you think makes sense. And I appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of the Flock Rundown. As always, have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.